Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining us from. And welcome to our webinar, Building with Mistral, Open, Powerful, and Ready to Scale, brought to you by our friends at Mistral AI. I'm Brian Mink, co-founder and president of Data Science Connect, the world's largest data and AI ecosystem for enterprise leaders. Today, we're excited to welcome hundreds of attendees from all over the world to explore how Mistral is enabling open, powerful AI that's ready to scale in real-world enterprise environments. In this session, Aaron Delp, Global Head of AI Technical Marketing at Mistral AI, will discuss how to develop and deploy enterprise AI applications with Mistral. Aaron will walk through Mistral's full model spectrum, from large to small, and how to select the right capabilities for your specific use case. You'll get an introduction to Mistral AI Studio and learn how to begin building, customizing, and managing AI applications with speed and control. The session will also cover flexible deployment pathways, including serverless, cloud, on-premises, cloud VPC, and dedicated instances, so you can align infrastructure with enterprise requirements. Get ready to gain the clarity and tools needed to take your AI initiatives from experimentation to reliable, production-ready systems. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. To make this feel a little more in person, we suggest you add a photo to your profile and include your bio, LinkedIn profile, other information you want your fellow attendees to see. Next, please take advantage of the Q&A and chat features in the right side. We'll be addressing your questions throughout the webinar, so be sure to upvote the questions you'd like Aaron to address. If you're wondering where your organization stands compared to others on your AI journey, check out the poll question in the right sidebar. And finally, to learn more about how to develop and scale production-ready AI applications using Mistral's open and powerful models, check out the calls to action below throughout the webinar from Mistral. Now, without further ado, let's kick off our webinar and invite Aaron to the stage. Welcome, Aaron.
Hello, Brian. Thank you very much. It's good to see you today.
Good to see you as well, and I'll turn things over to you.
Absolutely. So first of all, everyone out there, thank you very much for your time today. Certainly appreciate it. What we're going to do today is about 45 minutes of content or thereabouts. And what I'm going to be talking about is a little bit of state of enterprise AI, also some of the issues with the enterprise today as well. And what I want to do, though, is introduce this concept of frontier AI, and I'm going to talk about what that means. And then also how to put that in your hands, how to own your AI, especially in either verticals or industries where it's highly regulated, or in certain geographic locations where it's a requirement as well. So we're going to be talking about sovereignty and sovereign AI today as well. Now, what I want to do, though, is I want to kind of start a little bit with state of the industry. AI so far today, especially in enterprise, a little bit of a mixed reception at times. And why is that? Well, first of all, a lot of industries today, AI doesn't necessarily take into account domain-specific intelligence. So what is unique about your organization? It's your data. It's the process, the procedures, the people in your enterprise, in your organization today. Well, most of the AI that is out there today is going to be more, I'm going to use the term off the shelf, meaning at the end of the day, it doesn't take into account all of the things that makes your industry and your organization unique. And part of that is from deployment flexibility, or really this idea of a lack of deployment flexibility. A lot of times it's locking into an ecosystem. And also how it is trained, you don't necessarily have control over that. So you're getting a bit of a black box. You're getting a bit of a black box that isn't necessarily as fine-tuned or pre-trained or post-trained, some of these terms you'll hear throughout this presentation, specific to you. And because of that, I'm sure we've all seen this study, a famous MIT study out, about a year or so now, where they estimated 95% of enterprise use cases fail to reach production. And why is that? Well, if I kind of chart out the depth of the AI solution on the bottom and the actual value to the business, a lot of the solutions that are out there today, this is where we're at. off-the-shelf AI today optimizes for the wrong outcomes. There's the concept of looking at all the leaderboards and leaderboard maxing or bench maxing, as you hear the term in our industry. And not only are we getting to a point where the models are specifically targeting the benchmarks, but the models are even starting to know when they're being benchmarked and acting differently than they would in a production scenario. And this leads to a lot of quick wins, a lot of state of the art claims of that model, but that lasts for a fleeting amount of time. Maybe it is a week, maybe it is a couple days. In some instances, sometimes it's a couple hours. You see all of these models coming out and claiming different things on the benchmarks. Well, what really matters for you and your organization? Well, what matters, it's less about leaderboard and benchmarking and more about business outcomes. AI should move the needle for your company. It should reduce costs. It should move your company forward. And how do you do that? Well, you do that by solving for return on investment, ROI. You solve for that through deep domain intelligence, this idea of controllable deployments and end-to-end end-to-end transformation. I'm going to be talking a lot about end-to-end transformation today because this is the real value for a lot of organizations that are out there. Transformative AI that should be centered around your competencies. What's some of the biggest things? I've kind of hinted at it, but what's one of the biggest hindrances to enterprise AI today? Unstructured data. Unstructured data, it's all over the place. It could be in Google Drive, it could be in OneDrive, it could be in Slack, it could be just on a network file share, it could be stuck in a CRM system or an ERP system. So, this whole idea of where do you go find all of the data? And then how do you combine that all into one system, one work stream, where it becomes your AI? So, this transformation that needs to happen. And then once it's in there, you start to get these business values. And this leads to competitive edge, can lead to smarter decisions, autonomous operations, much faster ways to get to insights and much deeper insights as well. And this creates a flywheel. And we've seen these flywheels many times before. You know, we've seen them with DevOps. Anyone who's worked in systems architecture for any length of time understands this idea of a feedback loop and continuous improvement. And it's no different than it is in AI. So what we're doing here is taking domain specific input and really ingesting that data into the systems. And then we're building, whether it's pre-training, post-training, fine-tuning, a customized model. So proprietary model training that is continually improved on. Then you're deploying that out to the field. Model serving, platform integration, super important at this step. And then the idea there is never be satisfied with that. You want to take all of that, continue to capture and harness that information so that you can refine and do continuous tuning and continuous model reinforcement around this. And this is how you create a very secure and sovereign AI flywheel for your organization. Now, what I'm going to do today is I have a decent number of slides, but also I have a number of demos, and I want to make sure there's something for everyone. So I'm going to do 3 levels today. So this is level 1. Level 1 is no code agents and speech to text. Basically, you can get started with this with the Mistral right now for free. The idea here is if you have a base knowledge of this and you just want to test the waters, well, let's go ahead and show you how to do that. So what we've done here is I'm going to flip over to a different screen. This is Mistral LaShaw, our conversational Gen AI agent. And we're going to build an AI agent, but there's multiple ways to build AI agents. One of them is AI Studio, which I'm going to show you about in a little bit. This is low code, no code. If you don't necessarily want to get into the under the cover details, if you will, you don't have to. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over here on the agents. We're going to click over here and we're going to launch the agent builder. There's a number of agents built in. You can think of it almost as personalities that Mistral has created. And what we're going to do is we're going to choose the data analyst agent and we're going to customize that as well. So it's going to pop up. You'll notice here this pane on the right where you can type in, now it's in orange and it says data analyst. This lets you know you're in agent mode. And we're going to customize this agent. We're going to give it some personality options. Since this is a data analyst, I'm going to mark polite, mature, and concise. That sounds like a good data analyst to me. And then I'm going to attach it to some of my knowledge, some of these connectors. You may hear the term MCP connectors. This is certainly one thing. I'm going to show you an MCP database connection here in a little while, but this is just the basics. So this is connected to Google infrastructure, connected to Microsoft infrastructure. There is some additional tools that Mistral has created as well for additional connections and additional features for the agent. And I'm going to click those, and then I'm going to, in this instance, give it a CSV file, and I'm going to ask it to go do an analysis on this. Why a CSV file? Well, CSVs, as much as we hate to admit it, CSVs still run a lot of enterprises. A lot of enterprises still run on data in spreadsheets. Remember, go back to that unstructured data I was talking about earlier. And this is just a publicly available CSV I found on the internet. This is just a breakdown of the industries in New Zealand in 2024. So we're going to go ahead and click run, and it's going to come back and it's going to give us a full data analysis of this. It's going to break down the industries. It's going to tell us a mean, medium, standard deviation in millions of dollars. And it's going to basically give us a nice overview of all of this. And you'll notice here, now that I've created that, I can click this drop down and I can have standard mode or this agent mode that I've created at any given time. So very, very easy to pop in and pop out of what we've talked about. Now I'm going to go on to a different one. Another big problem with the enterprise and unstructured data today is speech and audio and video, and converting that into text that can be easily absorbed into an AI system, text that can be easily put in a system of record. So we're going to upload a file, and Mistral Audio is going to go through this. And you'll notice here, it went through that video file. It came back with a transcription of this. It also, even though this one is only one speaker, it actually identifies multiple speakers and will tell you which speaker is speaking at any given time. And then in addition to that, something you can do is if you want to translate it into a different language, this isn't just straight up speech to text, it's also translation as well. You can pick a language here. Now, for those that don't know, Mistral AI, headquartered in Paris, France. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to convert the text to French. And you'll notice here, everything we just talked about, everything, the transcript from this is now converted to French. And now it's available for download. I can click here and just download it. In addition, to kind of take this maybe one step further for those out there that do want to do API calls for this, because you can add files straight into the GUI for sure, up to 10 files at any given time. But if you want to do it in batches, you can do it through the API, up to 1 million files in batch mode. And you'll notice here, you can just click that button and it gives you the Python, the TypeScript, or the curl that you can just capture exactly what it was. You can take this, you can import it into your systems and your workflows, and now very easily do batch transmissions for this as well. So that's kind of demo number one. And I've introduced you to the problem in the industry. I've shown you how easily it is to get up and running very quickly with Mistral. So let me tell you a little bit more about the company. Mistral, founded on very deep scientific expertise. Our three founders, all data scientists, coming out of either Meta or Google, helped in the early days with Google DeepMind and Llama. And our organization is up to 800 plus employees globally with a very clear mission. The very clear mission is to help enterprises and sovereign AI. We want to empower organizations with frontier AI in your hands. And you'll notice here, this might be a slightly different approach than others. And what I mean by that is what we value and what we want you to benefit from is a very real world benefits to your organization, time to sustain value, ROI over benchmarks, and this idea of customer control, security, and customization over this race to AGI. You will not see us doing that here at Mistral because what we want to do is be transformative to organizations. You'll see here some of the world's most difficult problems and some of the most transformative solutions to some of very large organizations globally. Now, this slide kind of summarizes Mistral just in a couple different columns, if you will. But the big thing here, I like to call this like if you want to get to the heart of something, you always ask why, if you've heard that before. So this is my why slide. So what is Mistral? Frontier science delivered to you. And that is delivered really in two big ways. Number one, industry leading, both general and specialized open weight models built for the enterprise. And I'm going to go specifically into the model families very soon. In addition to that, a frontier applied AI science team building these models and forward deployed engineers that assist you in your transformation and your journey. Now, why is that important if I go one step further? Well, that gets you custom, purpose built technology. So, the ability to not just have a model that is customized for your organization and your needs, but continually post trained for deep domain expertise. You have a wide choice of models. The idea of picking the model that has the greatest ROI and the greatest benefit, and the ability to be taken into custom workflows. Now, why is that important? Well, you get from that enterprise wide context and enterprise grade control. So, pre built custom connections to all of your workflows and your tools and your systems, the idea of a production grade training and inferencing platform, the idea of it being deployable on prem, at the edge, in serverless, in cloud in a VPC, and through an API. So that honestly covers just about every way I can think of to get AI in your hands. And ultimately, you're in control of all of it. And why is that important? The end result, the ultimate goal of AI, end to end transformation, full redesign of your business processes with AI first principles. This is where everyone wants to go, but a lot of folks stumble. If I go back to that first slide of where we are in the market, the reason why is because of the customization. The idea of AI today isn't doing enough for your organization. So we want AI that is user centric in its methodology, and we want continuous ROI as well. Which leads me to my level 2 demos. So let's say you want to go one step further than, say, a low code, no code user interface. Great. What we're going to do is show exactly this of that unstructured data I keep talking about. Let's ingest it into a system in your organization, and then let's do an AI assisted parts lookup for that. So what I'm going to do here is show you this. And Mistral has OCR models. So this is similar to the way we did speech to text. Now we're doing OCR. So unstructured data. We're going to upload an engineering file into the system, and it gives you a quick preview of it. And how do you want that output? Do I want it in Markdown or do I want it in HTML? From there, if I want JSON as well, if I want to absorb this data into something else, well, I can build that out. I just have to give the JSON descriptors. I need the field names. What kind of field is it? And I'm going to build out the JSON. And now I'm going to click run. And again, just like the previous one, speech to text, this one is the UI, the front end mode. This is in something called AI Studio. So you're building an AI studio. But in addition to that, everything is available through API. Again, up to 1 million files in batch mode. So the ability to take all of that unstructured data throughout your organization and put it into a system of record. Now, what we can do here, though, is you'll notice I'm flipping over to the text preview. It broke the graphics down into individual JPEGs, and it highlights whichever one you're looking at any specific time. And it went a little fast, but at the very bottom of it, it also takes this table and generates this into a standard OCR table as well as you would normally see. And then you'll see as well, here's the JSON that it did, and it basically went through, gave everything a label, gave everything a value, and then I can download that as well. So that's the first half of this. I've taken a bunch of unstructured data. I've put it into a system of record. In this instance, I'm not showing this part of the demo, but it is a database, a standard database for parts lookup. And now what I want to be able to do is go query that database through MCP, Model Context Protocol, and do that through a lookup from LaShaw or text generation into that system. So what I did is I've queried it and it said, hey, do you have parts with a diameter of 254 millimeters? And it's using an MCP connector called Sketch Retriever. It's going out, it's getting the results, it's summarizing all of that for us, and it's going to return this result. Now, what's interesting here, though, it's hard to read on the screen with the thinking, but what happened is it saw that diagram I just added. And we asked it the question for parts with a diameter. Well, it didn't find a part, but it found a hole with a diameter of 254. So now what it did is it said, okay, the parts don't match exactly what you're looking for, but this hole did, and you might be looking for that. That might be ultimately what you're looking for. So now we basically have it's asked us, hey, I found this thing. Do you want me to go get more details on this? And we say, yes, absolutely. We want to understand better how we got there. So it shows us the thinking, and then it gives us the answer of that drawing. And it gives you the file name, it gives you the text, it gives you a description of it as well. Now, what's interesting here is, again, what is the end result that the AI, where did this come about? Well, we took a bunch of unstructured data, we put it into a database, and in a normal instance, if we just would have queried it, it just would have said, no, I don't have any parts like that. It would have returned 0 results. What this did is it used the AI generation to go out there, do a little bit of thinking, a little bit of problem solving, and come back with an answer that normally would not have been surfaced in this. So this is AI transformation for you in your specific domain. So now I'm going to go back to my presentation. Let's continue along here. I've talked a lot about models and model families, and I've shown you a couple of them today already as well. We've got our chat models, we've got OCR, we've got text to speech. Why even have model families? Why not just have one big model? Well, the idea there goes to that original mission of not necessarily chasing AGI. The idea of the biggest return on investment for the enterprise is the right model at the right time in the right place. Maybe it is a generalist model. Maybe it is a large model, a medium model, a small model, or a mini model, depending on what you're looking for. That could be a combination of the number of parameters. So on the Mistral end, 3B, 3 billion parameters, 8B, 14B. On the large end, almost 700 million 700 billion, excuse me, parameters. So the idea of finding the right model for you and your organization. You'll also notice there's a little tag there, orange or yellow, for if it is an open weight model or if it is a premier model or a licensed model that you would have to talk to Mistral for as well. And the idea here is, again, right sizing. If that large model is the Ferrari supercar, well, it might be expensive and it might be hard to maintain and it might be hard to customize going forward. Well, if all you're doing is going to the grocery store, you don't need the Ferrari. So the idea of getting the right model in the right place, or maybe you need a specialist model as well. So the specialist models here, we've already talked about two of them, OCR and Voxtral. And then there is at the very bottom, a lot of folks ask us about code completion. Now, going into deep dive into code completion today and agentic coding could be a webinar all on its own. So just let it know. I'm going to talk you through it, but there is models out there for coding, and there is a coding product and a CLI based agentic coding product as well. And I'll cover that in the next slide. And then we have some other models at the bottom, and there's also a new tab and a new designation, and that is red, and that is the labs model. I listed one there. We have 3 or 4 labs models out now. There's one that was just released last week that is Lean Stroll, which is for lean and lean programming and coding. So it is another coding model, but it is under labs. The labs designation simply means it is released out to the industry. It is an experimental model. Your results may vary, and we will continue to iterate on it. So that gives you a little bit of background around the models and the model families. Let's talk about the portfolio and what we're trying to do. At the end of the day, we want to help you in 3 steps. First, build those frontier AI systems, then activate them as applications and agents. So it's not just about the models. It's about the tools, the applications, and the agents that wrap around that so that you can ultimately realize value as well. And let's take those 3 steps and show you what the portfolio looks like. Well, there is AI Studio. I talked about AI Studio. AI Studio was that UI for the speech to text as well as the OCR. You can go there, you can drop files in, you can start using it today. But the idea there is that was just a small piece of it. I'm going to show you more in the next demonstration. That is your tools and operations all in one place. Building agents, building workflows for those agents, and having them all report back and do observability and accountability and lifecycle management. All is handled within AI Studio. In addition to that, we have something new to the portfolio called Forge. Forge is all about models and model customization. It's a bit of an advanced concept, but it's where our customers are increasingly asking us to go, where they want to take that AI and they want to customize it and make it their own. Something we've been doing, it's an internal tool set we've been using with our customers. And last week at NVIDIA GTC, we announced full productization of that as well. And then if you wrap around that, you kind of get to the activate layer. You have Vibe for Work and Vibe for Coding. Vibe for Work is what I just showed you, that AI-enabled business processes. So everything I showed you in LaShaw and creating the agents there, that is all Vibe for Work. And then there is the coding, as I mentioned today. I'm not going to go deep into the coding, but just making you aware that the coding is there. And it ultimately allows you to realize this value on top of it, allows you to create these solutions that helps your organization go faster, but at the same time is domain specific and enables that transformation as well. So I'm going to go into my level 3 demos. And as I mentioned, this is agents and agentic workflows. And this one actually is more kind of theme-based, if you will. This is a more real-world scenario. And I have to talk about this in case the screen's a little hard to read there. This is something called an ECTD, Electronic Common Technical Document. And this is submission specifically for drugs and drug regulation to the FDA or the EMA. And if you want to bring a new drug to market, you have this packet you have to submit to them. Has all these different stages. Each stage has different requirements. Each stage has different documents that are required. And by the way, to get approval, all of those go through that process and then you're approved or rejected. Well, as you can imagine, something that complex with that level of documents, as well as dealing with a government entity, might be a little bit delayed in your response back. And so the more precise you can be upfront, and the AI term, if you've heard of one-shotting this, getting it in on the first time, this is something you want to one-shot because in this industry, being more prescriptive upfront can save not just time to market, but significant revenue as well. So, how does something like that look like? This is something we've put together with an agentic workflow. This is in AI Studio. So, the whole idea is we've got a front end and we're going to uh, put in a drug. We're going to give it a sponsor. We're going to say what kind of drug is it, and we're going to give the organization, and we're going to start assembling this workflow. Now, what happens here is you'll see there's an entire workflow. And this workflow, we're going to run this workflow. We have the documents there. And then as it comes back, it's going to say, okay, for each step in the submission, we're going to analyze all of this and we're going to give real feedback back. That screen at the bottom is hard to read because it is given back in text that can be generated and bubbled up into larger reports. But let me just kind of tell you that it's broken down into gaps, it's broken down into suggestions and improvements. And so what you're showing here is it's going through each of those steps and it's reporting back. And it's actually saying, okay, module 1, I found some gaps. Module 2, I found one gap. And I'm going to continue to do this. I'm going to continue to go through my workflow and identify each stage, the documents required. You'll notice each document, there's 10 to 15 documents there, and each module, it's going to give a summary, it's going to give the finding, it's going to give a gaps, and it's going to give recommendations for improvement as well. So as you can see, you can run this instead of giving it to the FDA or the EMA, you can actually give it to the workflow and keep iterating until you get something that is very close and can significantly save time. Now, what I wanted to do next was talk about Forge a little bit more. I told you a little bit about Forge, but Forge, I think right now is super important for the industry and where Mistral is going and helping our customers. And why is that? Well, because right now, where the industry is going, custom models are really becoming one of the only competitive advantages. And why? Well, if I step back for a second, why has fine tuning, pre training, post training, why has that been a little bit out of reach for a lot of organizations? Well, anybody who's done data science and built the models, they tend to be brittle. You can absolutely get them, and there's recipes and there's tools, but then you kind of add a little bit into it, and it's almost like you're building a recipe for cooking, and everything has to be in a certain way. Like, say, like a souffle, right? Like everything has to be done at a very prescriptive temperature, and everything has to be done in a certain order. And if you don't, it kind of fails, right? So you have that problem with building models. More isn't always better when it comes to models, and sometimes it's very hard to get to a place, and you got to roll it back to a previous evaluation or previous checkpoint, and sometimes it's not possible. In addition to that, so there are some tools out there, but they are usually tied to a single cloud and usually tend to lock in. Your organization may or may not want to participate in that for regulatory reasons or governmental reasons. And up until now, because of that brittle nature, well, it leads to unpredictable economics. Failure can be extremely expensive. The larger the model, the longer the run, the more GPUs that are required, the more expensive the runs as well. And so you have to almost do a bit of guesswork when it comes to the cost analysis of building the new models. It's just an unpredictable area. And in addition to that, you may not have the skills in-house. This has been true of many technologies over the years. Going back to my data center days for a little while, when Kubernetes first came on the scene, it was notoriously hard to manage. And the same with OpenStack before that, or Docker and containers and containerization, or serverless as well. So the idea here is on something that is complex to own, operate, and build and maintain, where are the ninjas? And what I mean by that is, where are those folks with the super specialized skilled? Well, you may have to hire for them if the products aren't out there to build. And so what happens over time is the products, you kind of put the ninjas in the box. You have the ability to productize that expertise and lower that barrier of entry. And that is what we're doing with Forge. The idea of lowering the risk and lowering this idea of customization. This risk of customization has always outweighed the reward in all of this. Well, that's no longer the case. That's no longer the case going forward with Forge. And you'll notice flywheels. Here's yet another flywheel. So the idea of taking that model, deploying it anywhere, improving on it, and then transforming that and continuously improving. So it leads to enterprise scale training stacks, end-to-end model customization, and it's all delivered on your infrastructure. Remember what I talked about, the flexibility on-prem, in your data center, in cloud, in serverless, or through APIs as well. So this is really for organizations that have a very high demand for control, not just over the data, but over the AI system as well. And for some organizations, that may be a little daunting. That may be a little daunting for some organizations, for sure. And so we also offer something we call the Iconic Use Case Workshop. The idea is we have forward deployed engineers, we have solutions architects and consultants that will work with you and your organizations to help identify that first use case, identify who in the organization needs to be consulted, what are we trying to solve for, and what is the ROI on the problem we're trying to solve. And then we'll put together a validation of the technical feasibility, a POC. And this proof of concept, typically, let's call it 2 to 4 weeks, but in a short amount of time, do this initial mapping of the process, the data, the workflows, the tools, the connectors in, the connectors out, and the idea of, will this return value? And then once that is agreed to, then we're kind of off and running. Let's set up this project. This is very bespoke. This is very white glove to your needs and your expertise, your customization, and your level of upkeep based off of your hiring and your staff as well. And so what I've done here is kind of summarized everything from level 1 demos, hands-on, right now, get started for free, no technical depth required, to a little bit of middle technical depth, all the way to as deep as you want to go for your solution and your customization. So level 1, where's next steps? You can go to Mistral.ai and look for LaShaw, which is the Vibe for Work. We're in the process of rebranding everything, so just letting you know. And then Mistral.ai, Vibe for Code, is Vibe as well. If you want to do level 2, go straight to AI Studio. AI Studio, build custom agents, play around with the specialized models, build those specialized workflows. Operations observability is all in there as well. And then lastly, of course, this level 3, this end-to-end iconic use case workshop, this idea of Forge and model customization and entire end-to-end transformation is something we'd love to talk to you about as well. And so with that, I'm going to wrap up the presentation, but I'll open it up for questions as well. So, Brian, do you have questions? I'll pull up the Q&A while we're talking here.
Yeah, it looks like we've got a couple of great questions in our Q&A section. So I'll pop up the first one here from Stanley. When deciding between standard model interactions and agent-based workflows, where do agents clearly outperform standard?
So that's a great question. And so quick reminder to everyone too, by the way. Oh, sorry, I pulled my menu down so I could see the questions. I didn't know you were popping them up on the screen. So here, hold on. I'm going back. I'm going to put this back up on my other, my smaller monitor so that that's not in the way there. So the idea here is, and sorry, I'm just readjusting my screen while I'm trying to answer it all at the same time. Talking about agents in standard mode. And by the way, too, let me clarify, like there's standard mode, there's reasoning mode, there's, instruct mode, there's all these different modes within models and agents. And to go back to the models and the model families very quickly as well, there is, like say the Mistral line I was talking about. We have different versions of each of the models. And so there is an instruct version, there's a reasoning version, there's a chat optimized version. And then if you go to some of the other models like Small 4, so Small 4 released just last week at NVIDIA GTC, so it is just a little over a week old. That one necessarily isn't broken into different models because what we've done is now advance the architecture to where it is a hybrid model. So it is just a feature flag of whether it's reasoning or not in that. And then the idea there then is basically having what we've seen a lot of times in especially complex agentic workflows. You'll have different agents have different jobs or different personalities. Let's say one is the organizer. And so it doesn't necessarily, it's a generalist model and it's properly sized so that it can do the thinking it needs to do. And it might be in reasoning mode. And then it might call one of our coding models. So it might be, doing something where it is doing a coding model. So it'll call one of the coding models, or it might call one of the other more specialized models. So the idea there is the term that seems to be coming out is a swarm of AI agents. And how does this swarm handled? Well, it is handled through exactly that. It is through different agents doing different tasks, sized and based off of what they need to be doing, and then passing inputs, outputs to each other. I hope that, excuse me, I hope that answers your question. If not, feel free to ask a clarifying question on that.
Yeah, great answer. And our next question comes from Alon, who is the CTO at Broadcom. Can you run your solution in an air-gapped environment? What is the prereq to run?
Yes, absolutely. Fantastic question. And I touched on it, but maybe I wasn't clear on it because the models themselves, I absolutely told you about that. But when it comes to AI Studio and all of the tools and all of the applications, yes, you can. What we actually do is it can run, it's a SaaS-based service, like say, take AI Studio, for instance. It's a SaaS-based service, and then it calls out wherever it needs to call out. But for an air gap solution, what we actually do is we take all of that software, we package it up on a quarterly basis, and then that is available to be run completely on-prem in an air-gapped environment as well. So everything I talked about today is available in an air-gapped solution. The only caveat is that trade-off of how often is it refreshed and how is it refreshed.
Good points. Next question comes from Michael. Agent memory is a key thing on type products like open source, OpenClaw. Do you have specific answers to this trend in your platform?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, we are so it is OpenClaw compatible in the fact that there is a connector to Mistral within OpenClaw. So that is something that is there today. And then when it comes to the solving for the agents and the memory, There is, depending on which platform you're using it, is kind of where the memory is served from, if you will. And so, like, I can tell you, LaShaw, like I talked about in before when I was creating an agent in LaShaw, there is a memories feature in there. But it is something, it kind of becomes architecture and solution dependent, but it is a known issue and solved for without a doubt.
Good points. And I think the last question we have here is from Dean, and it's a good one to wrap up on. And Dean asks, what's the biggest mistake you see teams make when choosing a model?
Oh gosh, the biggest mistake I see when choosing a model right now is not properly accounting for that level of customization. Because what happens is a lot of times customization kind of becomes addicting, if you will. And what I mean by that is we kind of go, okay, hey, let's kind of customize it a little bit here. Let's connect it to this. Like maybe it's MCP connectors to start connecting to your data, and you kind of go, oh wow, okay, that's really powerful. Now I want to do the next thing, and you want to do the next thing, and this leads to, in typical project management, we call it scope creep. It leads to not necessarily thinking about the end goal right up front in that end-to-end transformation. And so the idea of planning for what are you trying to solve for, getting realistic ROI on that, and then solving for that and making sure it is architected and all of the pieces are connected correctly is far and away the biggest thing that I've seen in projects today.
Awesome. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for joining us. This was an excellent presentation and a lot of fun learning more about Mistral AI. So thank you again to you. And if you guys missed any of the webinar or want to watch anything, you can refresh this page right after the webinar concludes, and this video will be available. We'll also send out a link to the recording tomorrow as well. So special thank you again to Aaron for Mistral AI, our friends there, for making this great webinar possible. We'll see all of you again next time.